Hello, welcome to or back to my channel. My name is Stevie. This is Stevie Reads. I didn't even notice from this angle that Edward is just like right next to me. Hello. If you're watching this the day that it comes out, it is New Year's Day, so happy New Year's. And I thought it would be very appropriate for the Wednesday video this week to be the best books that I read in 2024. So today is actually the 26th of December for me, the day after Christmas, and I decided that until the end of the year, I'm just going to do some rereads. I'm rereading a favorite trilogy. I'm only on the first book, but having a great time. So this is officially my set in stone list of all of the 5-star reads that I had this year. I'm not including rereads in this list, and so far I have read 117 books this year, and of those 117, I have 18 new 5-star favorites. So to make this video not terribly long, I might not give synopses on all of them. Some of them are sequels in series, so we'll just see. But I also very quickly wanted to do a couple of honorable mentions. We're gonna go over all of the 5 stars, but I had 4-star books that were just super strong 4s. For one reason or another, they weren't a 5-star for me. Reading is subjective. You know, 5 stars is a feeling, and these ones didn't quite get that, but they were very, very strong 4s. So just going to quickly mention Bride by Ali Hazelwood, such a fun paranormal romance between a vampire and a werewolf. Honestly, what more could you want? The Mermaid of Black Conch by Monique Rafi. This was a gorgeous / heartbreaking story about a mermaid who gets stuck on land and has to deal with humans. Ew, terrible time for her. Annibot by Sierra Greer. This was a 4-star, but it's one of those 4 stars I just can't stop thinking about. Our main character is an AI who is kind of like a robot girlfriend. They call her a pleasure bunny, but she is like a rich man's robot girlfriend, and loved being in her perspective and really liked the way that it ended. And then the last 4-star is Hera by Jennifer Saint. I adore Jennifer Saint. I love her Greek mythology retellings, and this story, as you can deduce from the title and cover, is about Hera. She is most known as Zeus's wife, but I absolutely loved getting to see this goddess as the main character in the story. Okay, but that is all of the honorable mentions. Let's get into the 5-star reads. And I'm going to put these in order that I read them. So this first one, I think I read back in February or January, I can't remember. Other than the books that are series, I'm not gonna do those in order. I'm just gonna mention them all at the same time. So I'll sprinkle those in. But the first book is a horror book. We got Chlorine by Jade Song, the only horror book on this list, like my absolute favorite one of the year. In this, we're following our main character, Ren. She is a high school student on a swim team who is obsessed with becoming a mermaid. I just had some stunning mermaid stories this year, but this one was definitely the gnarliest. Can't believe it was Jade Song's debut. Whatever she puts out next, I'm immediately picking up. Still on the spooky vibe. I guess I was just kind of in the spooky mood at the beginning of the year. But we've got The Whispers by Ashley Audrain. And this book is a contemporary thriller, so you know, we're set in our world. All of the characters are just regular people who live in the suburbs, and just like her debut novel The Push, really highlights the not so fun side of motherhood. It honestly puts me off to the whole idea. And I read this at the beginning of the year, so forgive me, I have a terrible memory, but I do know that this was multiple perspectives, and I normally don't love that for a thriller because I always have a favorite and I just want to be in their perspective for the entire story. But I just remember that all of these women were so interesting to follow, and that this book could have been 200 more pages and I would have eaten it up. I read this so quickly and had such a good time. Yeah, sorry I didn't give a lot of the plot. I just don't really want to give anything away. It's a thriller. Go into it blind and just trust that it is amazing. Next up, we have got Ordinary Human Failings by Megan Nolan. I'm so happy I have a signed copy because I ended up loving this so much. And this book is a 5-star for me because of the writing. The story itself, we are following ordinary human problems. We're following 2 different perspectives. One's Carmel, her family's kind of going through a traumatic event, and then Tom, who is a reporter trying to get the scoop on what's happening. This had a lot of conversations on media, like when you're in Tom's head and he's listening to like the worst day of somebody's life, he's trying to think of how to make it a headline. It's sick, it's twisted, but it was also gorgeously written. I annotated it, and I'm sure I could just flip through and read a million quotes. I know I'm not mentioning rereads, but before I read this, I reread her first novel, Acts of Desperation, and that one was just as good the second time around. But it's this writing that gets me every time. I want to live in Megan Nolan's head and have her narrate my life. This was one of the easiest 5 stars to give. Okay, I feel like we made it a decent way through. I'm gonna mention one of the series that I continued this year. So in 2023, I reread the first 3 Red Rising books. I read that original trilogy back in 2020 for the first time, but that's when I wasn't annotating and I never continued on in the series. So last year I reread those 3, immediately wanted to go into the next book, and that was one of the only goals that I set for myself for this whole year, was just to continue in the Red Rising series and get all caught up before Red God comes out in 2025. So I did just that. I read, they're kind of heavy to all hold up, but I read Iron Gold, Dark Age, and Lightbringer this year. All of them were 5 stars. All of them are new all-time favorites. And I also read it as a part of a book club with my brother and our friend and my dad. So it was extra fun to just be able to talk to them about it in our little group chat and in person when I saw them. But oh my god, I'm so weak. I'll just hold up Iron Gold by itself. But the second half of this series, these last 3 books, we have expanded the characters. In the first 3 books, we're just following Darrow, and he expands the world and the characters so much. We have 3 new POVs in these 3 books. One of them is a girl. I don't even want to say her name because I want to spoil nothing, but she became a new all-time favorite character for me, like, ever. And just the politics and the genius of this series, like Pierce Brown, he's on the level of like Brandon Sanderson for me. I just love his world that he created. I love his writing. I love these characters. This would have been a goal that I would have been mad if I didn't do, so very happy that I read these. The next book is also part of a series, but it was the only 5-star in the series for me, and that is Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is the second book in the Chestnut Spring series. It's a cowboy romance, it's a single dad romance, and it was just like undisputably the best book in the series. Like, everybody absolutely loves Heartless, and I get the hype. Willa and Cade, I love you forever. I mean, it's a romance book. You can deduce where we ended up with this story. Next up is Sugar Baby by Celine St. Clair. This was another debut novel, another author that I ended up just loving. In this book, we are following Agnes Green. She just turned 21 and realized that her life is going nowhere. And then through a mutual friend, she is introduced to the life of a sugar baby, and we delve into that world with her. I didn't annotate this one when I was reading it, but I did highlight favorite quotes, and there is quite a few highlights. I liked the writing, I liked the journey that the character went on, but honestly, more than anything else, I love when a book with a gorgeous cover ends up being gorgeous on the inside. I will happily display this on my bookshelf. It felt very coming of age. She had to come to terms with a lot of the realities in her life, and I just really liked going on this journey with her. And then I mentioned him earlier, but this is the one and only Brandon Sanderson I read this year, and that is Tress of the Emerald Sea. This is a part of the, what are they called? The secret project books that he was putting out last year, was it? Or this year? I don't know. He puts out too many damn books to keep up with. That man is a writing machine. But I read the back of this and it just made me so intrigued because he started writing this novel in secret as a novel just for his wife, and then she pushed him to publish it. And I can just feel that when I'm reading it. Like, you could tell he wasn't taking himself too seriously at all, and he was writing this to just like have a fun creative moment. I'm sure to just take a break from having to write Wind and Truth, which just came out. So yeah, this was just such a fun adventure story. It was very reminiscent of The Princess Bride. It was just a silly, goofy, magical quest story with a hilarious cast of characters. Tress was just such a fun character. Absolutely loved her to bits. And surprisingly, Heartless was the only contemporary romance book all year that I gave 5 stars, other than 2 historical fictions, which if you told me that last year, I would have told you you were lying. Like, at the beginning of this year, I genuinely thought I didn't like historical fiction romance, but I've bought some over the past couple of years because of BookTube and being recommended. You know, I just thought at the time that I really liked those books and I kept buying them. But then I read a couple of 2 and 3-star ones back to back in 2022, and I really just thought that it was not the genre for me. But there's 2 of them on this list, so very shocking. It's not the genres, it is the authors. Like, you gotta pick up different people to find new favorites. But in one of my Read It or Unhaul It's this year, and this is the reason why I started doing the Read It or Unhaul It's, is I pulled this book and it forced me to read it, which I don't know when I would have picked this book up otherwise. The Wallflower Wager by Tessa Dare. In this, we're following Lady Penelope and then Gabriel Duke. His last name is Duke and he's also a Duke. I know that's ridiculous, but the story was so fun. It is the classic grumpy sunshine trope, which is getting a little bit overdone nowadays, but it worked so well for this story. She is just such a sunshine character. She loves animals. You know, it's just giving like Rapunzel, and then he is just grumpy man, and she moves in right next door. They become neighbors. Yeah. I loved this so much, and it prompted me to pick up an entire Tessa Dare trilogy right after. I hauled the Stud Club trilogy like a couple of months ago, and I haven't started it yet, but maybe that'll be my goal for 2025 is I need to keep reading more Tessa Dare. And the next book is The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey, another book that I owned for years, but I'm so happy I finally decided to pick it up. This is a thriller novel about clones, and there was so many twists and turns. Really cool conversations about like motherhood and marriage and murder and especially nature versus nurture. I just adored the writing and I adored the pacing. Like, it's a pretty small thriller and so much happens, so I was engaged the entire time. Like, I always wanted to know what was happening. I read this so quick because I just needed to know what the hell was going on. This is just reminding me I need to pick up more Sarah Gailey as well. This was just gorgeous. And to nobody's surprise, we have The Blue Sisters by Coco Mellers. This is Coco Mellers' sophomore novel. Her debut was Cleopatra and Frankenstein. Adore that book as well, but this one came out this year. I read it immediately. We're following 4 sisters. Well, really 3 sisters, because 1 year before the beginning of the story, one of the sisters passes away. And so it's a year later. We're seeing how the other 3 are doing. Spoiler alert, they're not doing very well, but I really love a book about sisters. I know some people don't love that trope, but I have a lot of sisters, so I find it fun. And yeah, just a lot of talks on family and grief and heartbreak and, you know, finding the light when everything seems so freaking dark. Another book that made me cry this year, but was just insanely gorgeous. Next up is Temper by Lane Fargo. I believe this was her debut, but I actually read her other book first, They Never Learn. I read that a couple years ago, adored it. So when I saw this at the thrift, I picked it up and decided to read it in October. That was such a good decision to read it during the spooky month. But this is a sort of retelling of Shakespeare's play The Tempest, and we're following a theater production of them putting on that play. I don't know the original Shakespeare story. I might have read it in high school and just forgotten about it, but this book was so well written, just like They Never Learn, and it also just had the like dramatic effect of a Shakespearean novel. Like, it really brought that energy, especially the ending. The ending was so dramatic. Like, oh, I just lived for the drama, honestly. Also, every single main character in this book was gay. Do with that information what you will, but it was just so fun, so beautiful, and so goddamn dramatic. Okay, we're gonna do the other series that I continued on this year. I actually started the series from the beginning because it's a graphic novel series, so very easy to do that, and I just wanted a refresher before I continued. You can see them behind me, but I read the first 5 books of Lore Olympus once again. They all got 5 stars once again. Every single book in the series always gets 5 stars. But I read this year for the first time volumes 6 and 7. This is a Greek mythology retelling, a Hades and Persephone retelling to be more specific, but they are graphic novels. They're also heavy, so I'll just hold this one up. Absolutely insanely gorgeous artwork. So I love the art style, and I just love Rachel Smith's interpretation of their story and of like Olympus. We get to see a lot of the underworld in these books. And as I've said a million times on my channel, I just love Greek mythology. I'm just so interested in it. The final novel is coming out in 2025. It's gonna be the 8th and final book. So I'm so sad, but also just so happy that I got to read it in the first place. Can't believe I'm gonna finish that series in like March, I think the book comes out. So sad because I've been reading it for so many years, but hopefully the ending is gorgeous. Okay, and we only have 3 more books. All of them are blue, just realized that. Kind of random. Next up, we have the other historical fiction romance, Chasing Cassandra by Lisa Kleypas. This book was so good. We've got a male main character who needs to be married for one reason or another and has his eyes set on Cassandra. And then we have Cassandra, who is determined to marry for love. She does not want her marriage to be a business arrangement, and she's interested in the male main character, but he is just determined that he is never going to fall in love. So they are both very stubborn in their own way, but watching them like drop the walls that they built up around themselves is just so much fun. I also listened to the audiobook for this one. I did it for both of them, but I just love the accents and like the way the story is being told to you. It just feels like you're listening to an episode of Bridgerton. So anyway, also found a love for Lisa Kleypas. And then I only read 2 classics this year, so worse than last year because I read 3, but I was just really focused on series, so you win some, you lose some. I did pick up The Blue Castle by L.M. Montgomery. This is another book that I pulled out of the TBR jar and ended up absolutely loving, and it is pretty small for a classic. I didn't fully annotate it, but I highlighted absolutely so much. I dog-eared all of my like super favorite quotes, and like half of it is freaking dog-eared. But in this novel, we are following our main character, Valancy. She's very shy and repressed, and at the beginning of the story, she is diagnosed with a fatal heart condition and decides that she is going to live life the way that she wants to live her life. She becomes a whole new person, and it is such a wild and fun ride. I can't believe how long ago this was written and how much I just ate it up. Also, gorgeous cover, like wow. Very happy to have at least one classic on this list. And then the last book of the video, my most recent 5-star read, Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. Oh, this book is beautiful and gorgeous and destroyed me, absolutely. I keep thinking about it. It's been weeks and weeks since I finished it, but I can't stop thinking about it. In this book, we are following 2 brothers, Ivan and Peter. They have a very big age gap. Peter is in his 30s. He's a successful lawyer, and then Ivan is 22. He's a chess player, you know, trying to make it by. We see both of their romantic relationships, and I hope they do like a mini series like they did with Normal People and Conversations with Friends, because I think this would adapt beautifully into TV. But yeah, I love Ivan and Margaret so much. One of my new favorite couples of all time. Sally Rooney just writes romances like nobody else can. Not that that's all this book is about. This one also follows a lot of themes of grief and family and brotherhood. Also, I think it's one of the first stories I've ever read about brothers. I've read a lot of sister books, but very beautiful one to end off on. If you have not read Intermezzo yet, I know it's kind of a newer release for this year, but make time for it on your TBR because it really was just absolutely stunning. I hope this video isn't too long. I can just yap about my favorite books forever, but those are all the new 5 stars that made their way into my life this last year. I'm so excited for 2025 and all of the other gorgeous books that I'm going to pick up and read. Let me know down below in the comments any 5-star books you read that you think I would love. My TBR is only at like 300 books. I can be convinced to read more. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching. All of my socials are linked down below like always, and I'll see you in the next one very soon. Bye!